good evening, afternoon, morning, midnight. This is Sean, and
Hey, it's Alex.
And this time on our Costa Kings Radio, we are going to be talking about our fascinatingly exciting trip to the People's Republic of China, where we did 15 parks in 11 days, or 15 park visits, 14 parks, 11 days. And Alex had a great name for the episode.
Thanks. It's the Cathay Catharsis, episode 1.
All the guys that didn't attend school in the US, what does that mean?
Cathay means China, and catharsis means relaxing.
See, that's the word no one knows.
For something to be cathartic means that it's therapeutic.
Now, the trip was therapeutic because
It was so
it was
therapeutic.
amazing to not understand what people were saying and to kind of become human again. Basic communication was fun. And it was just great to be somewhere else where people aren't the U.S. general public. It sounds kind of rough, but it was just fun to have something different for once. We had a really great time. Relaxing didn't mean we had much sleep because we would be like out early and up late, but we had a great time.
Well, yeah, we did a lot of up with the sun, down with the sun kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it was great.
Yeah, the tour definitely started off a little more
rested.
relaxing.
Yeah.
But then it got
Second half.
intense.
We're talking about East China.
In this episode.
And then we're going to have a South China episode for the second half of our trip. And then the third episode, we're going to touch on our two favorite parks in the world, Shanghai Disney and Chimelong Ocean Kingdom. So that will be the finale for our Cathay Catharsism.
That'll be the finale of the podcast series related to China, really.
Yeah.
Because
then
we're
after-
going to fight to the death of our favorite parks.
Yeah.
It's going to be intense.
Because, the long and short of it is that, like, we went into this with Shanghai Disney being our favorite, and now, like, Chimelong Ocean Kingdom.
Did you just get the answer
like,
to the entire episode?
No.
Okay, we're going to explain why.
Everybody knew that
guess.
Shanghai Disney was our favorite.
That's just true. It's true.
And then everyone who follows us on social media knows that Ocean Kingdom is now basically our favorite. But it's still, like, objectively, they're both so incredibly good that we're devoting a whole episode to the two of them.
And I think it's important
break
for
it
people
down.
to kind of understand why suddenly this theme park, themed to the ocean in South China is
Yeah. It's
rising to the top.
Random, like,
why-
Guangzhou investment company with, like, 2 properties to their name is now, like, what...
A global leader. They have
yeah.
more attendance than Cedar Fair or Six Flags.
Yeah, we were
combined.
looking at the T reports, the theme park entertainment attraction attendance. Like, they're number 6 in the world for theme park chains. And Six Flags and Cedar Fair are 7th and 8th, respectively. This place has more attendance than either Six Flags or Cedar Fair, and they only have 2 properties,
2
really.
resorts, yeah.
They have 2 theme parks and a zoo and a water park.
And an aquarium. I mean, not an aquarium, a circus.
And a circus.
It's a Chimelong circus.
But I don't even know how much,
So
I don't even know if the circus goes into their attendance figures.
I wonder.
Ocean Kingdom doubled their attendance in 5 years. They had 5 million in 2014, and now they broke 10 million. They've got way more attendance than, like, Hong Kong Disney, down the coast.
But more on that in
We'll
episode
talk about
2 and
that
3.
in 2 and 3.
Now we're going to start our little East China tour. Before we get started, we'll just kind of list the parks we went to. We went to Shanghai Disney, of course. We started with Shanghai Disney. We went to Happy Valley, Shanghai. And Happy Valleys are, in many ways, the Six Flags of the East. And so you'll learn more about that. We went to Joyland, which is home to Starry Sky Ripper.
I guess they don't call it World Joyland anymore. But
Yeah, I guess just Joyland.
But
That was a trip, too.
Joyland is such a basic sounding name. I'm like,
But for some reason, Joyland's not a name you hear that often, is
No,
it?
no.
It just sounds like it'd be basic, but that's probably why no one has named anything
Yeah.
after that.
the World Joyland, and then Dinosaur Land.
China Dinosaur Land.
Yeah, formerly
was-
known as China Dinosaurs Park.
Fantastic.
Like, everything there says Dinosaur Land.
You
now.
ready
Yeah,
for
that
some
park was
Dinaconda hype?
That park was a huge shock. That was amazing. We went for Dinaconda, but we stayed for the whole park. It
It was really great. Unlike some other parks, but we'll talk about that. Then we went to Sunac Land
Wuchi.
in Wuxi,
That was really good.
which was home to that giant
the giant blue
wing coaster.
B&M wing coaster.
that's just a half feet short of being a hypercoaster by technical American definition. Then we went to HB World, which also have a wing coaster, but one that's probably less famous because it's not as grandiose. But that park was grandiose.
HB World was
overall.
cool.
If you think you've seen
You think you've seen a movie
Immersion.
studios park? MGM Studios and Universal Studios,
They're all bare
have nothing
compared to the
on
grandness of HB World.
HB World. Instead of building like movie sets, they're like, we're just going to build scale replicas of everything and make it look real, and then film there.
Yeah, which is interesting because most movie theme parks are themed to the studios and the whole production, but their idea was to be in it, in the movie. But we'll go on.
Yeah.
We'll go kind of into that later.
Yeah.
And then we went to Haichang Ocean Park, which is a brand new oceanarium with the world's longest raft water slide ride.
Is it the longest?
Yeah, I looked it up. And the new Intamin Blitz coaster, Steel Dolphin. Which color scheme has nothing to do with dolphins, but it was a fantastic ride.
It was a great ride.
The rest of the park was a mixed bag.
The Orca show was good.
The Orca show was good, but the rest of the park was interesting. We'll go into that as well. And then we also go to Jinjiang Park, which is
Jinjiang Action Park, which
in the middle of Shanghai with the giant for the boomerang.
It was super sad.
It was run down. There was cats living there, which is cool.
Yeah.
But that's all we're going to say about that park.
Yeah, you got a couple credits there.
Yeah. But at least the
scary.
gym wasn't open. So.
Yeah, the giant inverted boomerang. This was my second time going there, and my second time striking out. I'm 2 for 2. Missing that giant inverted boomerang, but it's whatever. Someday, at least they were working on it. Like
that's true. At least we know it's still alive.
We like Shanghai. We intend on going there pretty consistently in the future. So one of these days we'll stumble down there and it'll actually be open. I think.
Yeah, I think.
Or
so
the whole
too.
park will close. One of the two.
Whatever happens to it, we're not going to talk
somewhere
about
else.
in this podcast because it's not really worth any of my time, your time, or
Yeah.
the reader, listener, whatever's time.
The only reason we went is because Haichang Ocean Park was like.
It was a shorter visit than
It
we
wasn't really an
thought.
all-day park.
It could be an all day, but we had seen some of the parks
Yeah.
already. We weren't that interested in some of the things that were there.
So I was like, hey, do you want to like do a quick and dirty Jinjiang Action Park jaunt? Like worst case scenario, we get like maybe a couple creds, and you did because they have the Zamperla.
Yeah, it was wild because that
motorbike
same
coaster.
evening we took a metro back to the hotel and then we flew out and we flew to Guangzhou.
Yeah, got our flight was at like
which
10
is where
p.m.
part 2 of the trip is.
So we had all this
Guangzhou,
time.
the city people don't really think about, but that is all episode 2. So let's just dive right in. We are 7 minutes into the show. We're going to fly to Shanghai by means of Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing we're doing is bitch about my phone charge.
Oh my god.
Little did we know the next day was going to be fantastic. And we went to Shanghai Disney, first day of the trip.
Mm-hmm.
Tell a little more.
It was awesome. We the Shanghai Disneyland app is your best friend. I had a friend of mine.
You got a friend in me.
That was amazing.
It's Toy Story Land.
I'm so happy
You're
that
welcome.
you did that. I'm really glad.
Cool.
Toy Story 4, by the way, is my new favorite Pixar movie. But I digress. A really good friend of mine, she actually reached out to me. She's a colleague flight attendant. She has a layover in Shanghai. And so I gave her the 411 on Shanghai Disney, and a majority of what we talked about was related to the Shanghai Disney app because we use that to order our tickets, to purchase our early admission. You can do
Buy
it.
Premier Pass, which is a paid-for Fast Pass only available at that resort.
Yep. Shanghai Disney, they have normal Fast Pass, and you
On
can
the phone.
and you can order it on your phone, kind of like Max Pass at Disneyland. Only it's included with your admission, and then if you want even more Fast Pass, you can purchase additional ones, kind of like Express Pass at Universal Studios, and they have different packages, sets of 3 or sets of 6, or individual ones. We ended up buying a few just because we could. And then we also purchased the Extra Magic Hour, which, unlike any other Disney resort, it's just an add-on that you can tack on to your fare. It was like $20 USD on top of a $72 USD ticket. And then like the Fast Passes and stuff, if you want to buy like an individual Premier Plus or Premier Pass.
Equivalent to like $7, I think.
Yeah, they're like
USD.
$8 or something.
Yeah,
and they're
it's
better value.
terrible.
If you get a package of 6, it's like $40 or something. It's honestly, I mean, on the one hand, it's like, okay, that's extra expenses. It's not always going to be necessary, especially if you go to Shanghai Disney on a weekday. We actually went to Shanghai Disney twice. We bookended our trip because our flight back to the U.S. was delayed for 8 hours. So
it
we
was
went
8 hours of park time.
Yep. So we went to Shanghai Disney, but it was on a Saturday. It was super busy. So the Premier Pass actually helped us get on some final Tron rides without having to wait like 2 hours. It might seem like an unnecessary extra expense, but if you're there on a Saturday or something, or it's really busy, like it is worth every penny because you're already out there. You already spent what you spent to get out there, and what's a few extra dollars for skipping
Tron
several
Fast Pass,
hours
yeah.
of line for additional Fast Pass,
Especially
so.
that park, because
Yeah.
that park eats people.
Mm-hmm.
And the operations, though obviously great by Asian standards, are not necessarily the fast-pacedness of the U.S. parks because a lot of people are still new to the concept of boarding trains rapidly or being assigned
It's the only park in the
rows.
country that runs multiple trains on
Like
their
we
coasters.
have definitely been stacked on some of the rides. I mean, on our first visit, we were like backed up on Pirates mid-ride. We were just like going from scene, waiting to scene, waiting to scene. So that park's operations, though good, are definitely on the Asian side.
They
of things.
struggle a little bit with like staffing versus capacity because like Pirates. For anyone who studied the Pirates ride there, it uses a one-of-a-kind ride system. 2 loading docks. Each boat has 30 passengers, and they can dispatch 60 people at a time. And the dispatches are less than a minute.
They're usually roughly to 30 to 45 seconds. So their capacity.
But what happens is if they don't have enough people staffed, the boats stack really quickly.
Yeah,
because it's a big
designed
system.
to dispatch.
You gotta have
You
gotta have like 8 people in the station working if you want your 60 people.
Which on our busy day, it actually seemed to work out really well. They split the boats. They split the boats 6 rows. Each just split it into like 3 sections of 4 rows.
Yeah.
So there would be 3 groupers. One grouper would be row 1 through 4. Then one grouper would be row 5 and 6, and then one grouper would be row 1. 5, 6, 1, and 2.
And 1 and 2. Yeah.
And then the last grouper would be then row 3, 4, 5, and 6 in the back car. So it really worked out getting those boats out with 3 groupers, just splitting up those 12 rows into 3 groupers. That was actually genius. We didn't even think about that.
They had infrastructure set up for that because there used to be a single rider line for Pirates.
And that became the third grouper.
Yeah, and then so there was 3 lines going into the station. It used to be 1 line for one boat, 1 line for the other boat, and 1 line for single. But now
single would just delay operations so bad.
Now it's like they've got 2 boats, 12 rows total, and so they divided the 12 rows between the 2 boats by 3s. And they have a grouper for each set of 4, and it's super efficient and very impressive.
So that was cool. But yeah, our first day was nice because we hadn't been to Toy Story Land yet. So we'll just kind of backtrack. So we stayed at a courtyard near the Disney Resort area, and they had a shuttle, which is nice.
They had a shuttle to the airport and to Shanghai Disney.
Complimentary. So, that was pretty sick. So we took that over.
So yeah, if you're looking to do a quick and dirty, Shanghai airport to the park and back with a hotel stay, that hotel is perfect because it'll...
Yeah, you don't have to pay like Disney property prices, which is nice.
Yep.
And you're close to metro station. So
it's a very nice hotel.
It was pretty good. And then so we did early admission.
Yep.
However, we had issue with the Wi-Fi. So it's just a fair warning for anyone out there.
Yeah,
you need to be on the Wi-Fi to be on the app, but since you have an international phone connected to the Wi-Fi, it can be a pain.
Yeah.
So be aware of that because it was kind of a challenge
most people
to get
who travel
early.
to China use a VPN, and there's a lot of different VPN apps out there, and you can just download. We used different ones throughout our trip, just because one would work better than the other in a different region or a different city.
Different time of day because they're all related to traffic in other countries.
But VPNs will not work with the Shanghai Disney app. So if you have a VPN, you can turn it on for when you're using data for social media, but then you have to turn it off if you want to connect to Shanghai Disney's Wi-Fi, which is fine.
Which we didn't realize at first. We're like, why can I not load our tickets?
We figured we did all the hard work, so you don't have to. We figured it out in the field. It was stressful, but once we were in the park, it was fine. It was 8 a.m. The park
staff was nice to help us. They were like trying to figure out for us how we can get inside without the app working, and they figured it out.
The customer service aspect is definitely there. Everyone is, I think, pretty friendly.
And it's becoming increasingly better because Shanghai Disney opened, and I mean, our first visits to Shanghai Disney staff just wasn't necessarily the greatest, but anywhere that we went in China, the customer service aspect has greatly improved just in 2 years of us going there. So that was pretty great.
So yeah, we were there. We had the park to ourselves. First thing we did was we went to Tron, and then I proposed to Sean.
That's right. That was a big surprise.
So we're getting married.
I was like, oh. Well, we'll tell you how that went. So, we take pictures a lot, as you see, on our website. And so he was like, post for Tron. I was like, I kind of just want to write because we're the first people here.
I had him looking over the balcony.
So he's like, look at Tron. And then, just stare at it. So I was like, all right, cool. I stared at it. And then I turned around, and there he was on his knees. It was very romantic. It was very
One
cool.
knee, not both knees.
I freaking know I knew that. Just like how we wear our engagement rings or whatever you call those things on our right hands, because I just learned weeks after it's supposed to be your left. So there we go. We don't know much about it.
We posted the engagement announcement with pictures on Facebook, and like 600 people liked it, and nobody told us that our rings were on the wrong hand.
So like
but it's
now we're used to it, I guess.
It's fine. We're gay. We're doing our own thing. It's whatever.
And then we rode Tron.
And then we rode Tron a bunch. We rode it like 12 times or something that day.
Yeah, we rode it a lot because the first visit, like we said, it wasn't that busy.
Mm-hmm.
So we rode that. That was really great, obviously, because it's Tron. And you know what? The first time I went to Tron, it was really cold out and it ran really slow. And I was like, what the hell? But then this
time
visit,
it hauled ass.
It was like
right
shit.
out the
Tron
gate.
was like intense. It was intense.
Yeah,
it was
first
great.
ride of the day, it was hauling.
Which is really impressive because Tron really needs to warm up, to be honest with you guys. And then we went to get our new
Toy Story Land.
To get Toy Story Land. Now, I do like this Toy Story Land more than the other ones because it's a little tighter of a fit. It doesn't ruin the illusion of the rest of the park. Like, it's very much its own
It's
wing.
very secluded. Yeah.
You know how in Hollywood Studios, Star Wars, and Toy Story Land just are supposedly blending. It's the worst transition, but that was not a transition issue that we noticed at all in Shanghai. It really, even though it's part of Fantasyland, it's so secluded still that it did not
Toy
at all
Story
interrupt
Land
anything.
is like its own little offshoot from the Midway, like a little half moon that branches off of Fantasyland and connects back to it. So you can actually bypass the area on the main Midway, kind of like Tomorrowland.
Yeah, you have to actively go into the area to go into the area.
And if you're not in Toy Story Land, if you're in Fantasyland but you're not in Toy Story Land, you can't see it. The sight lines are great.
So that was a nice thing because Toy Story's theme is too colorful. It's like, it's larger than life, all that kind of stuff, and it really ruins some of the natural aspects of the parks. It wouldn't work with
Fantasyland or Tomorrowland. And
so the areas in Shanghai Disney are so naturalistic and so realistic and so clean that could have really ruined it. But I'm really glad that didn't have that happen because it would have been the Galaxy's Edge Toy Story Land effect, where Galaxy's Edge is all naturalistic and beautiful and detailed, and there's freaking Toy Story Land. And it's such an ugly, ugly comparison and contrast.
Well, Hollywood Studios Toy Story Land is just ugly in general.
It's too open.
Not enough trees, not enough. I mean, the
Hong Kong one is kind of like that too. The Hong Kong one is very open and it's very hot out and kind of like the Paris one. It was a little closer and secluded. So I like this one a lot.
Also, they've got Rex's Racer, which is the same thing as RC Racer and the other ones. Which, I mean, we walked onto it, so it was fine. And then the Slinky Dog ride, like the Himalaya-style ride from the other smaller Toy
And it had
Story
a
lands.
cute, like, Mater's Junkyard Jamboree kind of...
They have Woody's Roundup, which is a quasi-unique attraction to Shanghai Disney. It's not a unique ride because it's the same ride as Junkyard Jamboree, like Alien Saucer Spin, which is... an indoor version of the same ride. But this one has like little horses, like Bullseye, but like in like little carts. It's super cute. And it has like a little, like kind of ghost town little facade.
Yeah, the queue goes to the little village. It was cute. I mean, again, I'm not the biggest fan of the Toy Story lands for obvious reasons. I just don't think the theming is intricate enough. And I'm just not that attached to the franchise. I think it's too colorful, too large. But... the area wasn't bad. Of course, what we really came for was Tron and Pirates, but we're glad to have that credit now for the roller coaster.
In typical Shanghai fashion, they did Toy Story Land better than any of the other.
And we're not
parks.
saying that because because we wanted to start international. That park just...
Well, we were irritated that they were even doing it, and then we went in expecting to hate it, and we were like, oh, this actually isn't that bad.
And of course, since the park is a recent ground-up, theme park from Disney, they kind of knew where the expansions were going to be and how that was going to work out with the original layout of the park. So I think that's one of the strong suits of this area, is that it doesn't actually seem like it was attached on. It seems like it's an intricate park, but it is not intruding.
It was actually part of the original concept, and they delayed it for budgetary reasons because they knew it wasn't like totally necessary, but it worked out as like a nice addition in the first couple of years. On the opposite side of Fantasyland from Toy Story Land is the Zootopia area that is currently under construction behind.
Yeah, it's going to be between Pooh and Seven Dwarfs.
Yeah. There's a midway leading to the Winnie the Pooh ride, except that it like awkwardly dead ends next to the ride. And you could tell that a midway was always supposed to continue through. The abrupt stop was more of an indication than anything that was the next branch of expansion. So Zootopia area. We don't have a whole lot of details on it, but we're excited just because it's like totally different. And I love Zootopia. I don't know how many of you have seen that movie, but that movie's like, they knocked it out of the park. It is such a cool movie and really fun and interesting. I'm curious to see what they do. It was a huge hit in China.
Which is why it's going to China.
They're going, the Shanghai Disney is doing a lot of like, they focus so much on like the brand new, like really recent Disney franchises because of like, a lot of like the legacy Disney stuff was embargoed. Like, nobody in China like has seen Beauty and the Beast because it wasn't out, like it wasn't available in China at the time. It's really in like the last 5 or 10 years. Stuff like the newer Toy Story movies and like Cars. Like Cars 3 did really well in China, and like Zootopia and Moana and Frozen, like that kind of stuff. So I think that's going to continue to be a trend for Shanghai Disney. Will be like focus on the, or like the Avengers. The Avengers are really big in Shanghai too. The restaurant in Tomorrowland, the Stargazer Grill, is like all Avengers themed now. So I wouldn't be surprised if like for the second gate at Shanghai Disney, it's going to be focused very heavily on like Marvel, because the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been a huge hit in China as well.
Yep. So after we rode Rex's Racer, what's it called there? Is it called Rex's Racer there?
Yeah.
Yeah, we went over to Pirates, of course, which, like we said earlier,
and got our
had a bit of
a
stacking issue the first day. But of course, Pirates is still such a phenomenal ride. We had a really, really great time on that. As usual, we actually did ride Soarin' this time because we bought a premiere package.
Yeah, we bought a premiere pass that included Soarin', so we're like, all right,
might as well ride it.
And like, I like the Soarin' here just because it has, every Soarin' is the same except for the final scene. Like all the Soarin' around the world ones are the same except like the one in Shanghai. Instead of like flying over Disneyland or flying over Epcot, you fly over the financial district in the Bund in downtown Shanghai, which is really cool. And I like the theme of the one in Shanghai Disney. It's themed to, like, Machu Picchu. It's, like, a very naturalistic edge to it instead of, like, American aviation or whatever. So, yeah, we did that, and that was fun. We did Roaring Rapids is another one of our favorites.
Yeah, the animatronics seem to be much more lively than it was the first
spoiler
time.
alert. Well, I guess everyone probably already knows.
There's only one actual themed character.
There's a very impressive audio animatronic in the indoor portion of Roaring Rapids.
And the ride went well. A little wetter because, the last time we were there was in the winter. So that was a good ride.
We would ride Grizzly River Rapids all the time. Or Grizzly River Run.
In California.
At DCA all the time. So Roaring Rapids is like a larger version. It has a lot of similarities, but overall it's a larger product. And I believe this one is done by Sansei as opposed to Intamin. Otherwise, same basic thing, just bigger and themed to South America. Oh, and Seven Dwarfs Mine Ride. Back to that for a sec. That's another one that used to have a single rider line, and then they lost it because the throughput just wasn't optimal for putting single riders on. And it's essentially the same ride as at Walt Disney World, except we like Walt Disney World's better because we think it's integrated a little better. I love like the midway that wraps around it. Although the Zootopia expansion should flesh out the midway that encircles Seven Dwarfs, so we'll see about that. But the final scene on Seven Dwarfs Mine Train in Orlando is, of course, the Dopey and Snow White dancing in the Seven Dwarfs house, which is a reclaimed scene from the Snow White's Scary Adventures ride, which Shanghai Disney, of course, didn't have that, so they built their own, like a couple of small scenes and animatronics in the break room, with like a little house in the distance and like a tree with like a raccoon in it, and that sort of thing. Subtle differences, but obviously it's not as impressive as the full scale Seven Dwarfs house that was reclaimed from the original ride from the 1970s. So we give Orlando the upper edge. We only rode it once in Shanghai, I think.
Well, not overall, but this time, yeah.
This time we just gave it one ride, and we were like, oh yeah, like we like it.
Especially now we moved to Orlando, it wasn't that unique for us anymore.
Living in Orlando now, like it's like we just rode it the other day with Sean's mom. We had a lot of fun on it. And it was like, oh yeah, I love having that scene at the end. It makes a big difference, I think. Kind of like the climax of the ride. Shanghai just feels a little bit empty by comparison. But by and large, the same ride and very good for both parks.
And I think we should honestly just kind of move on to Happy Valley Shanghai, where we kind of want to focus on
I'm down.
discussing some of the attractions and parks that are different from what we already always talk about.
Yeah.
So we'll hop on to the Six Flags of China OCT group, which is home to the the Happy Valley parks. We went to the one in Shanghai, which is located a little bit northwest.
No, southwest.
Southwest. So we had to go north
of the city center.
That's right. So
Shanghai Disney
southwest.
southeast, next between the airport and the city center.
That's right.
And then Happy Valley Shanghai is southwest. This was my second time to Happy Valley Shanghai. It was Sean's first time.
It was not very happy, but
The last time I went, the Megalight was down.
This time we
so
went,
was
the
the Kitty
Megalight was
Coaster.
down.
This time the Megalight was down again, and the Wood Coaster was down,
Yeah.
which is BS. Apparently, we went, I guess, for both of the Happy Valleys, we went on Fridays, and we struck out hardcore with both Happy Valleys. So I guess, going on Fridays, you would think operationally it would be good, but I guess we need to...
The thing was, the park actually had people in it. Like for Dive Coaster,
Yeah.
which is a larger version of SheiKra that is taller and that has
10
10
across.
across seats. Let me see how much taller it actually is. I believe the diving coaster at Happy Valley is... Oh my god, please hold. I thought I had
What is
it.
it? Oh,
It's 13 feet taller. So,
213 feet tall.
and it was actually a really good ride. We had to wait 45 minutes. The entire queue was full.
It was one of the
Even
longest
though
lines of the
dispatches
trip,
were pretty
actually.
okay.
Was waiting for, yeah.
They were dispatching at a pretty okay
It's
rate.
such a funny little ride because it's a perfect, a funny big ride. It's a perfect composite of SheiKra and Griffin. SheiKra's layout, but with Griffin's trains, and has a slightly different ending compared to SheiKra. That final 270-degree little teardrop turn back into the station actually goes all the way down to the ground
and then
in
swoops back
Shanghai,
up.
and then swoops back up because, of course, at Busch Gardens there's a service road that has to be cleared, so that turn stays elevated the whole time. In Shanghai, it's just a field, so it goes down and back up, and then it has a longer brake run and a shorter station. It loads one vehicle at a time. The station is much shorter than it is wide. It's actually pretty funny. But yeah, of course, they would never need a dual loading station since every park in China that isn't Disney or Chimelong has no intentions of running coasters with multiple trains.
And then we did ride their kiddie and family coaster.
The
family
Kitty Coaster
Inver
was
from
closed
B&M.
on my visit, so that was a new credit. It was my only new credit at Happy Valley Shanghai for me was the Kitty Coaster, which was fun.
So the B&M Invert, the family one,
Family Invert.
it's very much inspired by the Vekoma family Invert or suspended coaster.
The Kavaston
But it's a little
Freedom
more
Flyer
it's a little
layout.
more intense.
Layout, yeah.
And it does elevation-wise, it's a little bit differently
Totally
laid out, but-
over-engineered, but smooth as glass, and infinitely better than Banshee at Kings Island.
Boom.
Boom.
And then there's also Crazy Elves, which is a spinning coaster from Zamperla.
Zamperla spinner. An actual Zamperla spinner. The Kitty Coaster was Golden Horse or something.
Yeah, the coastal
Some
ants.
coastal ant. Yeah, the mascots at the Happy Valley parks are little ants.
Yeah, I
little
guess that's
worker
what
ants.
it's related to.
It's very symbolic of
And it was in
China.
it was in the ocean area of the park, so I guess that's why. And then we did ride their Mine Train, their Intamin Mine Train,
Intamin
which
Mine
is
Train
their
is
their
awesome.
best coaster in my opinion.
Yeah.
that we've been on. Very intense.
It was
good
better than I
pacing.
remember.
Ulysses for
Because I
days.
liked it, and then when we wrote it, I kind of downplayed it, and then we wrote it together. I was like, wait a minute, this is awesome.
That was really
That's the
great.
only coaster that we wrote twice.
Yeah, it is the only coaster.
And we
tried.
wrote the Flying Pagoda.
Yeah, it's not very
Flying
well
Island.
dressed up like the one at Efteling, but it floats around the park. You can really get to see everything nicely. That was cool. But overall, the parks didn't have a lasting impression. They were definitely on an upswing. Everything was repainted, and most of the park was undergoing positive refurbishments.
At least, yeah, well, the Megalight,
But
which,
once
again,
it's
I'm
close,
2 for 2, missing out on the Megalight. At least they were doing a lot of work on it. They were pruning trees around it. There's a lot of activity going on in that area. It's funny. It's the only ride in the Shangri-La area of the park, I think.
We were able to go to exit, and we noticed that
So
they
even
were
though
actually
there's no
working on it.
when the Megalight is down, that whole area of the park serves no purpose.
Except for to have chained birds.
Oh,
yeah, chained bird. It was pretty sad.
Happy
OCT
Valley,
has this idea.
yeah,
of-
OCT does not. We'll talk a lot about this on the South China report because our visits to Happy Valley, Shenzhen, and Night Valley were pretty eye-opening as far as, like, their relationship with animals, captive animals. I mean, I think we both already kind of had an idea of this, but it was a lot worse, I think, than we had previously experienced. They've got, like, macaws and parrots and things, and they're, like, chained to the perches upon which they sit and are...
just stand there. People can just walk up to them. And
yeah, they're unsupervised.
They're unsupervised. So, like, there's just, like, a midway of, like, all these birds that are just chained to a pole, and people can just walk up to them, and people that don't really seem to care enough about the animals' welfare for them to be trusted with these animals just hanging around. So, I don't know. That was real China. But
yeah. The ocean area of the park was the same way. There's the area of the park that has the family invert also has a large indoor section with a variety of rides and several aquarium setups, but the aquariums were very small for the very large fish.
And it was just overall sad.
If you can imagine, like,
set up with LED lights, it was like a disco in there, but there was actual, sophisticated animals like sharks and stuff.
You can imagine like having like multiple adult sharks in a tank the size of a jacuzzi. It's not totally inappropriate. It's hard to look at. We took some pictures, to paint the picture, but ultimately,
yeah,
it's just unfortunate.
It just didn't make a very good impression. Luckily, staff was nice at the park.
Staff was nice.
Most
of the parks we went to, we had luggage in hand because we were between hotels or transiting around between cities, and all these parks have a very cost-efficient luggage stowage. Either at the before the entrance of the park or right after the entrance of the park, and it's quite common for people to have their luggage with them when they visit the park. So
the Happy Valley really does seem to be the park that everyone wants to go to in Shanghai. Honestly, within just a few hours' reach, you have so many better parks.
Yeah,
I would really not go to China for a credit run because we didn't come home with that many credits, but we really just went to go to all these parks.
We got like 30 credits or something.
Yeah, but for a 15-park visit,
yeah,
it's not the craziest amount. So we just, if you're going to go to China, the Happy Valley parks on our trip, of all the 15 parks we did, or the 14 parks we did, were on the bottom. All three of the OCT parks on the bottom, along with Jinjiang. So I would really say, just because they have coasters and some of them look pretty good, and you want to do a credit run, just don't rush to the Happy Valley parks. Focus on maybe taking a train out to Chengdu.
There's definitely better parks out there.
Which is only an hour bullet train ride away, and it's home to China Dinosaur Land, and it's close to Joyland and Wuxi Sunak. That's a much better region for coasters. Yep. So we'll go right there. We actually stayed in Chengdu in a big Marriott hotel. It was fantastic. We had an amazing premier suite. We could see Danaconda from our room. We were 1,400 feet up in the air. Mm-hmm. We were in the clouds. It was really sick.
It was incredible.
It was the tallest building in the entire city.
We were up with the sun because the sunrises from our room were incredible.
Yeah, we were above the clouds. So the clouds were right there, and we saw the sunrise above. It was really, really sick.
We couldn't bear to close we could never. It was wall to wall windows overseeing the whole city, and we couldn't bear to close the blinds on the windows with that beautiful view. So we just, as the sun came up, we woke up and got our day started early.
And the first park we went to was Joyland, which we were done on a Saturday, so there must be people there, and there were like 5 people there. Yeah. But they had an opening show that had like 20, 30 people involved in it. So
and
that
California
was kind of fun.
Screamin's music.
California Screamin' music was ripped off. There was dancing, there was singing, there was waving.
So cute.
And then we walked into the park to a sign. We walked all the way to Star Skyrip, of course, because that was the ride of Focus.
Yeah.
But we got there, and there was a sign that said, "Ride not open," and we're like, "What do you mean ride not open?" Yeah. And then we asked the staff member and with our little translator app, and he said, "Yeah, probably not today." And we're like, "You have to be kidding me!"
Really? I can't remember.
Remember that? And we were like, and then I asked all these engineers. I was like, "Are you sure it's not opening?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, it's opening at 10:30, whatever." Anyways, we were there at like 9:30, and we were like, "Okay, this ride's not supposed to open. Are you kidding me? It's Saturday. This is Star Sky Ripper. We traveled all the way."
Luckily, I mean, we got to see them put the train on the track. It was clear to us.
We were being pretty nerdy, and then we saw several engineers hop around the park, and every engineer I was like asking with my phone app, like, "When's it opening?" Or I pointed at the ride, and they kept saying 10:30. So at that point, we knew that. And then they replaced the sign a few moments later that said opening later. So at least it opened. It was a really great ride.
Yeah.
But
the park itself, if any of you are familiar with like video games, this was the park that was it's It's equal parts a Universal Studios Islands of Adventure ripoff and a ripoff of like StarCraft and World of Warcraft games. The Starry Sky Ripper is the hallmark attraction in the StarCraft area of the park, which also takes a lot of cues from Marvel Superhero Island. We did this park in the morning with our plans to do China Dinosaur Land in the afternoon, but we ended up only spending like 90 minutes in the park because we made quick work of it. And we'll talk more about why our visit was so quick in a sec. But yeah, Starry Sky Ripper was a lot of fun. It wasn't as good as Flying Dinosaur, in my opinion, or Tatsu.
Or Manta.
Yeah, I would say it's Manta level. It looks really cool.
I would say it's between Manta and Acrobat, and I'm saying that because Acrobat lacks the theming Manta has, but Manta's integration is unbeatable.
Yeah. And Sean pointed out when we were there something I thought was quite a clever observation, which is that Starry Sky Ripper is very much the Vekoma Flying Dutchman of the B&M Flyers because it has
a vertical loop,
a lie to fly,
a giant horseshoe. That's one of the main elements,
and the double inline twist corkscrew type thing, and then a final helix at the end. Aside from just the orientation and the
seating of the seats,
yeah, it's very very much a fun. But I would take Batwing at Six Flags America over Starry Sky Ripper in all seriousness.
And a lot of people are going to hang up on the episode at this point, and that's okay.
Sorry.
But here's out. The ride is very intense, but there's definitely moments where it just lacks force. It kind of just hangs around, and it does kind of combine a Flying Dutchman with the Superman Ultimate Fly clones. It has some cool elements, don't get me wrong, but as where the intensity of the Flying Dutchman is consistent the entire ride through, there's moments on Star Sky Ripper, you're like, wow, this is crazy right there. And there's moments you're like, why am I going through these elements so slowly?
It's a mixed bag because there's moments of the ride that are really fun, and then there's moments that are really sluggish, and then there's between the vertical. Okay, so if anybody's wondering why B&M hasn't built another like vertical loop on a flyer,
because it beat you up.
I thought my head was going to explode. Like I thought my sinuses were literally going to pop.
Yeah, so you know how intense Tatsu's pretzel is? Imagine doing that twice because you start with it, you end with it.
And it was so unexpected because like we weren't carrying that much speed. It was all about the angle of the approach into the loop, and even the Flying Dutchmans aren't that forceful in and out of the loop. So it totally caught us off guard. But we came out of the 1.5 barrel roll under the lift hill, which is a great. That's probably the ride's best moment. And
it's a great moment. However, when we rode Flying Dinosaur last year in
way
Japan,
better version.
The 1.5 barrel roll in the sky thing, whatever you want to call that. It was much more intense. Yeah. So when I rode a Star Sky Ripper, I was like, why am I hanging here? Because I felt like I was hanging
We drifted through it, and we're like, oh, this is nice. And then we come out of it and hit the bottom of the vertical loop, and we're like freaking mortal and pestled into our seats. And then we do it again. Because you come out of the loop, and then you're just pasted to the... oh, my God.
However, the element after loop is kind of sick, because you go from a fly to lie in a turn. It's actually... That was a really good element.
Yeah.
And then there was a non-working water effect.
Yeah, you come out of the fly to lie, and then you're like face to face with a broken water feature, which is another hallmark of China. So the ride, rough around the edges, had some great moments. Not as good as it looks.
Yeah, I think people, especially back when we just had California Coast Kings, people were always saying, "Oh well, Tatsu no longer looks like the best flyer. Star Sky Ripper does." And I can tell you now that whoever said that, I'm sorry, y'all full of it because. It is not that good.
Even when we were on the Japan trip and we were riding Flying Dinosaur.
Which is phenomenal.
Which is incredible. And people were like, oh, I don't know if I like it better than Starry Sky Ripper. I'm like, blow it out your asshole. Like, Starry Sky Ripper is not all that.
And I was expecting Sky Ripper.
And it was running, it was running okay. It wasn't like...
It seems to be running like a
bad.
Fly.
It's just not... I mean, it's not very tall and has some tall elements, and the pacing just feels off.
Yeah, I feel people have a misunderstanding of the height of the ride because people kind of look at it and it's in a field and it looks tall.
Yeah.
Because it has a straight down drop and it does like that 1.5 inversion in the middle, but the ride really is not that large. Yeah. I would say it's only slightly larger than
on the Flying Dutchman scale.
Yeah, it's about the Flying Dutchman scale,
and only slightly larger than like a Superman.
Having said that, the fact that it just ranks just below Manta at SeaWorld Orlando is not a bad rank.
Right.
It's a great ride.
Yeah.
But the reason that we're talking this way is because we don't want everyone in the world to think it's the most fantastic flyer.
Yeah, people will
when
say
it's
that,
not.
you only like stuff because it's in China. False, because here we are.
Here's an example.
We are not afraid to tell people
Starry Sky Shitter.
that Starry Sky Ripper is not the best flying coaster in the Far East, and it's not better than Tats. It's not even the best Asian-themed B&M flyer. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. But what was well themed was actually their knockoff
Golden
Mine
Horse
Train.
Mine Train. It was
The first Golden Horse, right?
It was
the first Golden Horse.
Sean's first Golden Horse, and it was his first roller coaster with the signature Vekoma Mine Train layout.
Yeah, believe it or not, I have ridden a knockoff Vekoma Mine Train,
but not a real
layout
one.
Versus the real one. I've ridden obviously custom ones.
And there's
but I've
so
not
many.
ridden-
I mean, like Gardaland has one, and
Gardaland's
Wallaby,
kinda custom, but-
Wallaby Belgium,
Yep.
and
a lot of Chinese
Hard
parks.
Rock Park had one.
Shenzhen has one.
And Shenzhen's was closed.
Rest in
Spoiler
pieces.
there. But the Golden Horse knockoff dragon themed one was great. It was a great ride. No
Yeah, the
complaints.
queue was long and pretty cool, and we got to the right. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't running as smooth as the Vekoma could.
Right.
But it was great. The pacing wasn't bad. I really enjoyed the theming. It was phenomenal. It was overall a good ride. Not much to say about it, but definitely not a ride you want to miss out on.
And we rode it. This was a very time efficient in and out visit. We rode the mine train while we were waiting for Starry Sky Ripper to open.
And we got off of it, and we waited in front of Starry Sky.
Starry Sky Ripper, the first two trains out. Dispatches, it's the typical like dispatches every 10 minutes sort of
Again,
thing.
this
China.
park had like 10 people in it, and it was
That's why
Saturday.
none of our pictures of the ride have people in them, because we
This
took
wasn't
pictures of the
dispatching.
test runs, and then
First, they make you wait in a queue. Then they wait for at least 5 rows out of the 7 rows to be filled.
Mm-hmm.
Then they put you in a station. Then they do a whole spiel in Chinese that we don't understand.
and if you're wondering, we rode front and back, and
Yeah, from Rebecca Road, it's our road.
yeah, I would say.
But I feel like that's
yeah.
how you judge a coaster
Yeah.
anyways. Like, who doesn't?
And I liked them both evenly, and I did really like the ride. I wish I could have had an
I think
opportunity
I like the
to.
back better.
Did you like the back
You know
better?
why? Because that first drop,
You get pulled over the top.
it's good. Like, you just kind of get that whip,
Yeah.
like
That's
flying
true.
down to the ground really fast. I
True.
mean, that's that first drop hanging in the front, because again, it's not that tall of a ride. So
Yeah.
you're
already
row
like
one is
halfway down the
halfway
drop.
down. So, but no, it was
True.
fun.
True.
And then we tried riding the Sky Loop,
The Mauer Sky Loop,
which was an actual Mauer, right?
Yeah, like a real Mauer, and we were denied for being too tall.
Who too tall. So
Which is funny because like,
And then we decided-
Sean has never ridden a Sky Loop. I've ridden
I was like, the first
two.
movie Chinese would.
He's like, first Sky Loop, and then they were like, not so fast. But yeah, so after that, all the coasters are in the back of the park. The park is basically a loop. Again, it's Islands of Adventure for
and
all
I didn't
intents
hate
and
the park
purposes.
because like it had a lot of theming, but the atmosphere, the
In fact,
soul
they had
was just
that
not
Dr.
there.
Seuss area that was spooky.
Oh my God, that
it
was
was
scary.
so similar, and it even had the High in the Sky Seuss trolley tram ride, like a carbon copy of it, except it was all warped and covered in
Chinese.
mold and stuff. Yeah, so we made quick work at the park. It wasn't really a place that we felt like we needed to linger. There weren't a lot of like non-coaster rides we were interested in. They have.
There's some theaters and some motion
They have,
simulators, but Chinese
a,
standards I guess not high.
a Wonder Wheel over in the water park area.
But that was closed.
But it was closed.
Because the water park was closed.
And then they had a well themed shoot the shoot ride, or so it looked, but we didn't really feel like getting wet, so we actually left the park 90 minutes after it opened.
The problem with the park is that it's so out there, and the
Super
entrance is
isolated.
really grand, so there's no taxi stand, nothing. So trying to get out of there was pretty painful. So we actually flagged down a security guard that had a little flag of China pinned on his arm, who didn't speak a single word of English. And we used our little phone app. We're like, can you please help us find taxis? He's like, oh, no taxi here. We're like, please help us. So then he called his friend,
Yeah.
and he
phoned
walked
a
us
friend.
all the way through the giant parking lot with no cars, of course.
Yeah, it was like a 5-minute walk.
all the way to the front, and he's like, trying to communicate with us. We're not really understanding. We're like, okay, and then eventually he waves at this car that's just a regular random car,
sedan.
and he's like, "This is your taxi," and we're like,
We're like,
"Okay." There was no
okay.
taxi, nothing. So we kind of just like, we need to get down to the park, and we're on a schedule because
Yeah.
we need to get Atlantic on that. So
Yeah.
we're like, all right, adventure time. And so we
All
just
right.
hopped into the stranger's car, and we're like, let's hope she gets us there.
Yeah.
For a second, we were a little nervous, though. We're like, this is not a taxi.
Every
'Cause they told
time-
us taxi. you know?
Honestly, every time that we felt nervous or unsure about something, the Chinese rose to the occasion. I think I think by and large, pretty much through the whole trip, I like to think that we benefited greatly from the kindness of the strangers we met, the nice people.
And you know what? It's very much true what they say. If you attempt to speak the language, attempt to communicate in their language, people are much more willing to help you. It's just like a gesture of goodwill, because we know, like, we can count to maybe 10 max in Chinese, in Mandarin. We can say, hello and thank you, and how are you doing? And that's pretty much all we had. But if you start in the conversation that and you thank them in their native language, it seemed to be so much more helpful. The idea of customer service being bad there, my first trip I would have agreed, but this trip, every single person we encountered, incredibly nice, except for the train station.
I think it's changed.
In Zhuhai.
We had a little incident trying to buy a train ticket, but we'll talk about that
in episode 2.
But yeah, even since my first visit to China in 2015, it's been that was January 2015. So it's been about 5 years now. And it's just a huge difference, I think, in my personal experience. I feel like a lot more people speak English in China than...
Especially the younger generations.
Yeah, our generation.
Old people don't
our
at
age,
all.
Yeah. A lot of people working at these theme parks speak amazingly good English. And they were very excited for us to tell them that their English was good. It was
I wouldn't say amazingly, but I would say like well enough so we could actually communicate with them without getting
compared to
like
my first visit, where nobody spoke Chinese, or nobody in China spoke English except for like the manager on duty of a 5-star hotel, or that sort of thing. It's more of like a class thing. But now,
I also think it's location though, because the Shanghai Metro. And I've noticed a lot. The Shanghai Metro, we had a lot more success with English than we did in the south of the country, where even hotel concierge lobby people, no one spoke a word of English. Like at the Chamlong.
Yeah, I guess in regions
hotel,
where Mandarin is spoken, you find more English. But in the
regions where it's Cantonese, Cantonese and then Mandarin, it's a little less, because Mandarin is
still better,
language.
definitely better. And we met some really great people on this trip that were super helpful, and I thought everyone's English was awesome. And that seemed to be the nicest compliment you could give anyone in China, is that their English was good. So if someone is, you're in China and someone is like really trying their hardest to speak English, like tell them that they sound good, because people seem to really appreciate it, that acknowledgement. Let's see. Where were we? We're in
the
taxi.
Car.
That's right. We're in
the
taxi.
Not even a taxi. It's a stranger's car.
We're in the fake taxi.
And we're like, I don't think I was even that scared of being in there. It was just that in a taxi, you know what you're going to pay.
Yeah.
And the thing you read about the most is like being scalped as a Westerner in China, which is true. Some official taxis try ripping us off pretty hardcore. So we were like, what if we show up at Dinosaur Park and this person's going to ask us like for 1,000 yuan? It's such a rip-off. Yeah. What am I going to do? I'm going to jump out the car and like... We weren't really sure about that, but we got there and she charged us pretty reasonably, actually. Yeah. I was like, okay, this is like a taxi would have charged us.
I don't think we overpaid for taxis at any point.
Yeah, we took enough taxis for us to kind of really know what to expect pricing-wise, and only a few people tried ripping us off, and we would negotiate, and then we just pay half the price and be done. So negotiation is always the way in China, especially in South China. It's very much accepted and expected is to just negotiate.
Rule of thumb in China is that your taxi ride should cost like $1 a minute, I think, because we had some taxi rides that were a good 2 hours, 3 hours, but we didn't spend. Actually, it's probably it was like $2. No, it was like
that's because we were on a 3-hour taxi ride and we only paid $60 USD.
Was it really only $60?
We went to or 70, I think 60 or 70 when we went to from Shabby Valley, Shanghai to the Chengdu Marriott. Remember? We paid 600 yuan. Let me calculate how much that was.
Basically, taxis are a very cheap way to get around, especially if you don't have a lot of time. You might think that it would be.
We paid 84 USD for a 3-hour taxi ride. I mean, can you imagine? You can't even take it to the airport.
Wow, so it's way less than like $1 a minute. It's like 25 cents a minute.
So yeah, taxis were pretty. As long as you find one, there was definitely spots where we couldn't find one.
There were some places.
One were on the street, literally just flagging one down.
Sometimes the taxi drivers are like we had a couple of taxi drivers. Like one dude, like when we went to Changsha from Happy Valley, he had to call his wife and let her know that he was going to be busy for the whole night.
Whenever we were suggesting a taxi over an hour, they're like, oh no, you cannot do that. You must take a train. I'm like, no, I'm going to pay for this taxi because I have things to do. Please, we're going to this park in the middle of nowhere. Please help us out.
The only time we were straight up denied a taxi was when we were leaving Dinosaur Park.
Because it was too close.
It was too close.
We're like, great, so we got a hotel in Dinosaur Park, and this taxi was one of them take us over there. They were all rude. They were like, they kept telling us to go to different taxis, and they were all freaking assholes. And they were
Playing
like,
hot potato with the Americans.
and then eventually, this other person had to go to the same Wanda Mall we had to go to, and so they allowed us to jump in with them, and I was like, thank you for that. But let's talk about Dinosaur Park. Dinosaur Land.
So great. Dinosaur Land.
So, there is the famous coaster, the coaster no one knows about, and then the coaster that surprises the most.
Yep.
So you are going to guess that in your head right now. And
the
then
famous coaster, the coaster no one knows about, and the biggest surprise.
All right, do you think you got it? Cool, let's talk about it. So, the first coaster we rode is obviously Dinoconda, right? It's because, like, Dinoconda...
We made a beeline for there.
It's, like, in my top 3 best coasters on
Once
Earth.
we got out of the car, that was our taxi for the day, we walked through the dinosaur-themed resort complex with, like, dinosaur-themed shopping and a dinosaur-themed hotel, and made our way to the dinosaur park. The whole region, actually, is very dinosaur-oriented.
Because they have the largest fossil collection in the Eastern world or in the world general.
Just like that, like the Yangtze Valley, River Valley Delta is like flush with archaeological discoveries. In fact, the only known example of a feathered dinosaur was discovered, a fossil was discovered in that region. Since the 90s, there's been like a big paleontological boom in the area.
Yeah, I mean, even the freeway stops have like are themed to dinosaurs.
So like
Changsha
is honestly like the dinosaur city. That the dinosaur fascination permeates the whole region. So it's kind of fun.
Which is cool. And we'll talk about the city in a little bit.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about the park first. So we had heard that you can get a exit pass for some change to ride down the corner without waiting in the line. Now the person in the gift store said, go over there. And we thought that she meant go right through the exit to the station. We're like, oh, that's so nice. So I think it's in for free. They get to the station, they're like, where's your exit pass? We're like, I don't know. This person down here pointed up here and said to go here. So they're like, well, where's your WeChat? You need to buy one with WeChat. We're like, we don't have WeChat. This is the millionth run-in with the WeChat problem where you need to have a Chinese bank account
everyone
to use WeChat.
You have WeChat.
Or Alipay, which you need to have a Chinese bank card for. Which we didn't have, so we couldn't use our little phone apps that they wanted us to use to purchase things. We just had cash. We were the good old tourists with cash.
The Chinese ride operators were so nice.
Yeah, they set us down. They're like, just have a seat. We're going to dispatch this train, and then we'll come back to you. We're like, all right, thanks. And so they came back, and then eventually we agreed upon just giving the guy cash, and he would use his WeChat to get us on the ride.
So the ride operator accepted our cash payment, and he bought us the VIP himself, and they saved us a front row seat.
Yeah, so we actually... They boarded the train, they didn't dispatch it while we were figuring out the WeChat thing, and then they let us run onto it, and they gave us front row. So we're like, all right, that's sick. And Dinoconda, oh my god, what a beast.
Fabulous.
We thought it was going to be the same as Ijanika, and we learned it is not. Now, how much time do you have? Do you have a glass of water with you? Because we're about to talk about
Dinoconda. The final evolution of the aerodynamics, 4D design. Even though it's not as tall as Ijanika is the biggest one, but if we're talking like Pokemon here, the third evolution it happens to be the middle.
I mean, for the record, Ijanika is a absolutely fantastic coaster in my top 5 or 6, or at least top 10 in the world. But Dinoconda,
I think Dinoconda is even a little bit better. There's so many little tweaks to the design that they started with X2, and then Ijanika expounded on a lot of these things. The biggest difference, I think, between X2 and Ijanika being, besides the height, was the fact that you got an extra forward flip coming off of the first Raven turn, and then bringing the flip total. Is it a backward flip?
Yeah, you're like,
oh yeah,
when you go down, and then you go
I had a heart attack. Dinoconda has the same flip configuration as Ijanika, which is 5 total flips, 5 forward half flips, and 5 reverse half flips. We spent a lot of time dissecting the flip configuration using YouTube videos.
So Dinoconda does 1 complete flip and then like 4 sets of half flips. That's where X2 does just 2 complete flips. Or there's 1 complete flip and then 2 sets of half flips. Yeah. So there's more flips.
Yeah. There is
on Dinoconda Ijanika.
And at first I was like, well, how can there be an odd number of flips? It doesn't make sense because it has to reset itself. But instead of looking at it as 5 complete flips, you look at it as 10 half flips, and that's how it manages. That extra back flip towards the beginning of the ride is remedied by a variety, a barrage, if you will, of half backflips, front flips, half front flips, 3 consecutive half front flips over the course of the ride to correct itself. So that by the back third of the ride, you're kind of in the same positioning as you would be on X2.
And then you do one more front and one more back in the brake run. So we'll start with the drop. Drop is a little shorter than Janaka.
Yeah.
But since the train is heavier and longer, and it's a shorter drop, the flip is much more intense. Like in Janaka, like the flip was a long flip. It was 250 feet tall. But on a Dynacona, the flip was like, bam, like X2 back row. Like
the pacing on Dynacona is
thing.
Ferocious, and the flips happen in very quick succession because it's a longer, heavier train over the course of a shorter ride.
And then the Raven turn is much more squat.
It's very
so squat that the entire
circular.
inversion, it's almost circular. The entire inversion happens before you even reach the top of the element.
and even X2s, relatively speaking, are up so high, and Dynaconda's is only like 2/3 the height of the first drop.
So it means that you're going through it so fast.
Through it.
So as where the pacing on X2 is just like really slow. It's like, okay, fast, slow, fast, slow, fast, slow. Ichinaika, it's like, all right, we're going, we're flowing. And then Dynaconda just doesn't stop. It was just freaking terrifying. It just did not stop.
Fire. And then the double, which is the full barrel roll with the full flip.
You fly through it so much faster. Essentially the same
as Ichinaika.
Again, Ichinaika is one that's more stretched out. The train is smaller, so like going through the element, it was fast, but it wasn't quite Dynaconda where you do the entire inversion in a matter of seconds, and you're just, I don't even know what to say. I was speechless.
Another, like, really a standout moment for the ride for us is that far turnaround over the station. The evolution of this moment on the 3 coasters is really interesting. On X2, it's like this little fan turn. It's kind of a breather. Direction. It's a moment for people to just kind of catch their breath after what they've experienced in the first half of the ride. On Ichinaika, it's a large overbank turn, like a Millennium Force style overbank turn that kind of hugs the station and the drop out of the station into the U-turn into the lift hill.
And you tilt enough for it to be like intense and like a gracing, big sweeping turn. You're like, wow, this is pretty fast.
And I remember it being impressive, but also drawn out and a big moment on the ride. On Dynaconda, it is such a
small little top hat.
It's a top hat.
Oh my god! And I thought I was gonna break those restraints and fly out of them and
not only
in the lake. It was terrifying.
Much tighter and much more of like a tongue shape, but it
is literally a top hat
over the lift hill and over the brake run. It does not extend out to the
even though it hugs everything very tightly, it doesn't clear the ride's midfield. It literally just like crosses the midfield.
It hops over the lift hill, which is insane.
So you just go up straight to the sky and then you dive straight back down.
The clearances are terrifying.
Just,
and it was something. It went so. This moment on the ride on the general 4D layout went from being the breather moment on X2 to being the highlight of the ride on Anaconda.
Oh my god, that was definitely the craziest part of the entire ride.
I couldn't believe it.
I was gonna die because we went for a road first ride, so we were like, oh my god, this is so fast. I don't remember each that could be like this because we hadn't done enough research to realize how different they were.
The first drop kind of feels like X2. First couple of inversions reminded us of Ichinaika, and then we got to that part where it hops over the lift hill.
But then it has it has that overbank top hat. And
then the rest of the ride continues kind of a similar way to Ichinaika. Although
difference is the brake run really well. So go into the brake run. Ichinaika and Dynaconda's last inversion face opposite directions, even though they make the same backward flip. Mm-hmm. But then the brake run on Ichinaika is a lot more flat and drawn out because Ichinaika station is a little, it's just a longer brake run configuration, and you tilt down. So on Ichinaika, you come into the brake run, and you get thrown down, and you look at the catwalk.
You come into the brake run face first, scraping your forehead on the catwalk, basically,
which is really sick. That was really good. And even though I was sad that I wasn't a part of Dynaconda's lift hill, Dynaconda's brake run starts up so high, and for some goddamn reason, the actual brakes aren't until the very end of it. So you are going over these catwalks, going backwards, flying down this slope at such a speed.
It's a fake out. There's catwalks all the way up, and they're like 3 times as long as the actual brake run. These brake run catwalks. So you're flying through the catwalks. You're like halfway through the catwalks,
and you're still going
full speed, and you're like, "This is it. This is how we die." Because the brakes have failed.
The magnetic brakes,
and then the brakes kick in at the last second.
It almost sounded like being on one of those intimate drop towers where it's just like the the quick
you're just
magnetic break
barreling down on it, and then suddenly you're at a stop,
and you're like,
stop, and
what the fuck is
wow.
happening?
Wow.
Yeah. So that ride was just absolutely phenomenal. Now, believe it or not,
twice.
Yeah, we did ride it twice.
The second
queue
time
was amazing.
The second time we waited in standby. We waited like 45 minutes. The queue is in the infield.
It has
it's
benches,
gorgeous,
covered in trees. The ride's actually in a forest. Believe it or not. X2 is like on half a hill in concrete and grass. Ijanika is a concrete
parking lot.
And then Danaconda is in a man-made forest.
And it's funny because it's the newest one, and when it was built, it was
best aesthetic
grassy.
by far.
And now it's beautiful.
Yeah, and the queue has
Great
benches,
aesthetic.
and it's all covered,
It's
and
a great color
you can see the
scheme.
ride go by. It was the best product of
There's
all
a great
of them.
marquee with that big tree with the giant freaking snake in it that gives me nightmares.
Yeah, so not only is the whole product, not only is the ride experience better, and like
but the presentation,
whatever the word
is the superior presentation.
Yeah.
The only thing that's missing is, the gorgeous views of Viper from the overflow queue on X2, but, trees and shade and benches. And Chinese people to talk to in the queue and smoke cigarettes with in front of the no smoking signs, has its own charms.
While a staff member walks by. Now, one thing that I want to say is that this was actually not the biggest surprise of the park.
The biggest surprise okay, well, actually, before we get to the surprise, let's talk about the coaster that nobody talks about.
So the coaster nobody talks about is a Wild Mouse of Golden Horse that has restraints of a B&M, vehicles of an Intamin spinning coaster, and has an inversion.
Yeah, it's like equal parts Gerschlauer ripoff Intamin, like Tornado at Bakken, the exact look and color of the Bakken Tornado vehicles, and the B&M harnesses.
It was actually a good ride.
So a 3-way ripoff from Golden Horse, great ride.
It wasn't spinning much, which I guess is what I liked. It wasn't super comfortable, but the inversion was great.
Barrel roll was fun.
The capacity was great. They were dispatching,
and
it's
just called Super Roller Coaster.
And it was pretty super. I'm not gonna lie.
It was so super. And Golden Horse is having a good time with this product
because they already have 8 of them.
They've sold 8 in 3 years. So
and the new area of the park. So this is actually kind of great about the theme park. Everything is dinosaur themed, but it's not like
different
Jurassic Park.
sub themes.
So Danaconda is like obviously in the forest. It's actually themed to dinosaur snakes.
Yeah.
Now, which is sick, right? My Danaconda don't. And then there's the new area, which is I don't even know what it's called.
It's the vibe that I got was like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles,
Dinosaurs.
like 90s
Teenage
hip hop kind of
mutant
Teenage Mutant Ninja dinosaurs.
There you go.
I mean, if anybody's ever been to Wallaby Holland, we love Wallaby
like
Holland, and we're like, it's like
dinosaurs.
the Wallaby Holland section of the park where everything is like city blocks, taken over by graffiti, and just funny and goofy, and like shipping containers.
It was such a great area, and the funny thing is that it's dinosaur themed. Even though they left the dinosaurs out, it would have been such a great area. But every single area has a different theme, and they just put dinosaurs in it.
So it's
so
90s urban like hip hop dinosaurs.
Seriously, we loved it so much.
With several flat rides.
For a second, we're like, this is the greatest part we've been to.
Dinosaur themed. Like, they had a Zamperla, like a real Zamperla disco that had dinosaur motorcycle themed seats.
Yep.
As one of the centerpieces.
And speaking of Zamperla with dinosaur themed seats,
the surprise
coaster is
Dinosaur
Mountain. No Spacebound, no Big Thunder Mountain. No Splashbound.
This was actually the park's first roller coaster. It opened like a year before Dinaconda, and all we knew was that it was a coaster and that it was in a pretty large show building. And we waited for it. And aside from the wait being fairly tedious, the ride's a knockout. It is a Zamperla. Actually, if you don't want spoilers, cover your ears for like a few minutes. It's a Zamperla motorbike coaster with a lift hill, a tire-driven lift hill, and a 70-foot drop.
Long vehicles, 12-car trains, where you are seated just like Pony Express and all the other Zamperla ones, and
on Raptors, of course. On
Raptors, which is great. Or pterodactyls, whatever they are. What's the Raptors?
They're Raptors.
Okay, and so you turn a corner, and you are in a volcano or whatever it is, and then all of a sudden you see alarms going off, and then you enter Lift Hill, and there's a starry sky above you, and you are on the back of a giant dinosaur skeleton going up the lift hill, which is kind of sick. And then the ride layout, what a fucking knockout.
The G-forces, the pacing,
insane.
The scenery was amazing.
The light effects. I mean, so it has a big swooping turn, really sharp turn towards the ground, and this has helices everywhere. The pacing is unlike any.
You know what it reminded me of? It's like if I-305 was a,
imagine I-305 meets Pony
motorbike
Express.
coaster.
Seriously.
But like in the best way. I know that's the weirdest composite imaginable.
You know, the line was horrible, but we actually waited twice. A terrible freaking queue. We almost passed out because it was hot inside.
Yeah.
Waited through a queue twice because the ride was so unique, so phenomenal. We left there, I think, like, you know, this is probably the biggest ride of the trip so far at that point. It was spark number 5, 4 or 5. It was spark number 1.
It was between a third ride on Dynaconda, which, mind you, was in our top 5 global by that point. It was between a third ride on Dynaconda and a second ride on Dinosaur Mountain.
And we rode Dinosaur Mountain again because it was so good.
It was just so unique, so different, and it's just really, really fun.
And the park is home to a lot more areas. They just opened a studio tour-ish ride that is themed to
like a dinosaur safari.
Like a dinosaur safari.
Like Kilimanjaro safari, but with audio animatronic dinosaurs.
Then they have a children's area that's much like Dr. Seuss, but actually well-maintained. And all themed to little dinosaur characters.
Yeah.
Then they have the actual museum, which is also home to a giant log flume that's like Jurassic Park-ish kind of ride.
The log flume queue was actually longer than Dynaconda. It was over an hour, so we opted out. But next time, there's a pretty decent POV of that flume on YouTube. So we kind of saw it. And then they also have a water park.
Water park with a giant...
with a weird, like, Intamin shoot-the-shoot thing.
No, it's like a giant... elevator lift.
Yeah, like a giant Pilgrim's Plunge-looking thing. Except with, like, big, like, 16-passenger boats.
And then they had a SNS drop tower that had 16-passenger vehicles, like Roller Coaster Grand 3.
Yeah.
And that was actually a pretty fun ride. They had some more attractions that we didn't get to experience. The park has a lot of rides.
In their Jurassic Parky-looking area, they had a rare example of a Huss King Kong ride.
Yeah, Bobby Island.
Of course, beautifully integrated with this whole, like, very King Kong meets Godzilla Skull Island feel to it. So, like, bravo to them. Like, this park is very flat ride centric. They've got their 3 coasters and their flume rides, but it's flat rides everywhere. But all of them are very integrated.
And I think the greatest thing about this park overall, not only do they have fantastic roller coasters, surely, but I think the greatest thing is that they had all these different themes that I never ever associated with dinosaurs, and they freaking made it work.
They made it work.
There's like a port of entry, kind of like IOA, but a little more original, with dinosaurs just living in there.
It's like Mediterranean
dinosaur world.
The hotel has like a Victorian aesthetic, like a turn of the century, but it's dinosaurs. And
everything is dinosaurs. Yeah. It's such a great time. It was a big surprise, the park overall, and Dynaconda beats the piss out of everything else.
Dynaconda was really the icing on a great cake. It wasn't. Yeah. It wasn't like Joyland where we went. We got the coasters and we left. Like, Dinosaur Land was a place I would go and spend a whole day there comfortably.
And you know what? Chengdu, the city itself, because it is the city of Chengdu, which is only like an hour train ride, 3-hour drive by car outside of Shanghai. Yeah. And it is such a marvelous city. Shanghai has a flashiness. It's very Western in a way because it's where all the internationals go. But then we went to Chengdu, which is a equally nice city, if not nicer.
They've got 5.5 million people in their metro, so it's a big city.
But it's just all Chinese people. It is not. It is not that Western hub that, sometimes when you go to a different country, you kind of want to escape having that. Yeah, it's convenient to be in Shanghai where everyone speaks English, but you kind of want to be in a place where people don't speak English,
like out of your comfort zone,
and where people actually live and have a life, like normal, people or average class. And so it was great. We went to the mall a couple times. There was a Walmart there.
We had dinner at Pizza Hut several times, actually, because
we went to the little market that was called Everyday Market with the 7-Eleven logo.
Every Mart.
It must have been a ripoff.
Yeah. We went to Starbucks a bunch.
And there was just kids learning to roller skate in the plaza, and there was people playing basketball. It was so...
Yeah, there was dance
mobs. I was like, okay, I'm going to move here now.
It
sounds great.
There was a really nice communal feeling to this area.
Exactly opposite of what people try to tell you about China.
Yeah.
And I don't want to sound like North Korean here.
Everyone's out there. Everyone's when we were there, every night that we were there, we went to Wanda for Pizza Hut because Sean's vegetarian, and as much as we would like to, sample and believe in the local, authentic Chinese cuisine, a lot of it isn't actually very safe to eat, especially if you're not used to the ingredients and the local parasites and little buggies that are in all of this food.
Yeah,
so.
you can imagine that almost every single store, even if it has a nice aesthetic, smells like animal intestines. Because it's just, the hygiene is not necessarily there, and a lot of quality of the buildings isn't there. So combine those two, and actually buildings that are 5 years old smell like 20-year-old buildings that haven't been cleaned in a while. So,
so we ate a lot of Pizza Hut and McDonald's because it's safe and it's good and it's vegetarian.
And we walked so much on our trip that we actually didn't get any away from that. So that was good. But yeah, that was a great city. So let me tell you, if you ever go out, we know of people and friends and other tourists that have gone to Shanghai and have just made day trips to Chengdu for the parks. I highly advise you do not do so. There is one Hilton, there's one Radisson, there's one Marriott in this city of 5.5 million people. And if you prefer to stay in a brand that is more familiar to the US market or the European market, those are great hotels to stay at. But do yourself a favor and spend a day or two in that city because you'll fall in love.
You'll be glad. You'll be glad that city.
It was so amazing. We want to go there definitely again. I want to live there.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yep.
All
right.
Next park is actually Wuxi, which is close to the Wuxi University. They are also building a giant marine park in that region that has 2 killer whales. So it's an up and coming region. But Wuxi Sunac Land was a pleasant surprise.
It was a nice park. It was pretty much every park we went to, there was like a major roller coaster that was the focus. And then more often than not, we were actually pleasantly surprised by things other than the coaster. Falcon, the giant blue B&M wing coaster that intertwines with the
Before
Central
I
Mountain.
I actually want to say one thing real quick about that park.
Oh, do you?
Thanks, Steve. So, Sunac may not be a name you're familiar with, but the name Wanda is something you may be familiar with. So, all these theme parks in China were like Wanda theme parks. Wanda is also the company that has all the giant malls. The company, movie theaters, all that kind of
parks.
stuff. They just didn't do so well. So a Sunac Holdings China company took over all the entertainment, most entertainment. They took over the theme park departments and some of their snow parks.
They took like half
stuff.
Of Wanda's parks.
Yeah, so that's why there's all these parks that are under construction or that were Wanda parks, like Wanda Hi-Fi. Mm-hmm. That's now Sunac Hi-Fi.
Yeah.
So that giant yellow Intamin shuttle coaster, that's actually now Sunac.
Battle of Jungle King, the double tilt coaster from Golden Horse.
That's also Sunac now. So So the reason that Sunac is not a familiar word is because it actually comes from a holding company that's somewhat famous in China for resurrecting things, and so that's why the park is called Sunac.
All the Sunac parks have only been Sunac parks for like 6 months.
Yep, and all the new ones have this.
Wuxi had a name change before the park even opened.
And so the Wanda parks / Sunac parks have this thing where their entrance or their style of the park is actually very dependent on the region, which is why you may be familiar with the Heritage or Oriental Heritage parks.
Heritage.
They're part of the same chain, and they are actually parks that are the same chain or the Fanta Wild. Ooh, now it's not a wonder.
It's all Greek to me, man.
All right. Well, they may not be part of the same chain, but either way, kind of like the Oriental Heritage parks.
Yeah, it's that.
The Sunac parks and Wanda parks all have theming, like themes
regional
and architecture to the region. So Wuxi's was very much East China, very much what you would know from the Suzhou region, which is white Phoenician, like canals, black roofs,
lots of water.
Lots of water. The entrance was spectacular.
Like the signature ride at Wuxi Sunac is actually not any of the roller coasters. It's their incredible pirate-themed Spider-Man style dark ride, which is one of the most incredible final sea battle.
Damn.
And having a whole pirate area of this park ties into the fact that they're on the river delta. Whereas like Guangzhou Sunac doesn't have a pirate area because they're landlocked in North Guangzhou.
Though it was still very much themed to some of the older, because Guangzhou is very close to Hong Kong, and it was always the major trade port. So it's very much themed to a port versus like being on the open ocean. It was more of like a trade port. So everything there is themed to like the trade port. But yeah, the theming of Wuxi.
Totally different.
It's totally different, which is funny because we prefer the Wuxi one, but now I understand all these parks are literally catered to their local heritage. Having said that, the moment you come into the park, it's beautiful, and then you walk up to the middle lagoon, and right in front of you is that infamous giant 199.5 foot tall blue
197.
Crap, 197.5.
So it's 2.5 feet away from being a hypercoaster. Still taller than Apollo's Chariot. It may not have a 200-foot drop, but it has a taller drop than Goliath at Six Flags Over Georgia, and it's taller in height from the ground than Apollo's Chariot. So it's almost a hypercoaster. And we call it Chinese Gatekeeper because it's very gatekeeper-like in its aesthetic, and its presence is kind of like the centerpiece, the gargoyle of sorts overseeing the park. And we liked the coaster a lot. Unfortunately, like Wuxi, like the Sunac parks feel a little rushed because they are, and a lot of them. I mean, this one had just opened in June. The Guangzhou one.
It is much like the rest of China, where from a distance you're like, "Wow, it's the greatest thing ever built. Looks so clean, so modern, so aesthetic." But then up close, you're like, "Okay, black mold everywhere. Okay, there's walls falling apart. Oh, okay, this is not covered up. There's." So the park was very much like
Falcon is really good at its core, but like the mountain is a mess. There was a bunch of like leftover construction supplies and stuff, like in the little tunnels in the mountain and stuff.
The queue is nothing more than an entry to a metro,
Super
like a tunnel.
ugly,
it's really ugly.
That was a great ride, but
the ride was great. But I have a feeling that given the social media trends we've seen over the last year, it was like going to be the be all and end all.
Yeah.
Wing coaster, and I'll be honest with you guys, it doesn't even rank in my top 5 wings.
It wasn't even our favorite coaster at the park.
Wasn't even our favorite coaster at the park.
And for those of you wondering, like we really like Gatekeeper better, and a lot of people don't like Gatekeeper. We stand Gatekeeper.
I'm honestly a wing coaster nerd. I love wing coasters.
Love Gatekeeper. It's in our Cedar Point top 5. So take that for what you will. When we say that we like Gatekeeper better than Falcon, your mileage may vary. We know other people who've ridden Falcon that
the problem with Falcon is that so the ride feels like it's split up in two. They had this great mountain, had this great idea of making this ride the center of the park, and they did a good job with that. So the moment you get to the second half of the ride, there are some unique elements, and you interact with the rocks, and it's all fantastic. But this ride is also built to be the tallest wing coaster in the world, and the first half of the ride is just giant elements that we've seen on every other damn B&M coaster, and they just don't feel special. There's no landscaping. It's just a boring B&M. And then you get to the second half, and all of a sudden you run out of gas really quick. And I feel like the ride is not long enough for the amount of build-up and the length and the height. I just think it was underwhelming.
It has a really good moment. There's a camelback hump that goes over the mountain, and then a fan turn over the water,
which is good.
And then it does like this trick track swoopy thing through the rock and up into the mid course.
That's the best part.
It's the best moment of the ride. It's forceful. It's fast.
The moment you get to the mid course, you just take one drop. There's the slow turn.
You do the slow,
and you're already in a brake run.
The slow barrel roll thing, and then the ride's over. So
you have all this height that's much taller by like 23 feet, taller than Gatekeeper, but it does half the things Gatekeeper does. And Gatekeeper may seem very conventional and open in the field, but it does what it does pretty well. And I think that whatever the Wuxi Falcon wing coaster looked like, it didn't quite live up to what it looked like, in my opinion.
So let's see. So after we rode Falcon, we rode the amazing composite, like Whitewater West style rapid raft slide, which is like 4 Whitewater West rapid slides connected to each other in one full circuit ride with like little rapids ride style flumes connecting them. And for those of us who for those of you who follow us on Instagram, like we posted a POV of the entire ride.
Yeah.
Just because it was so unique and fun, and it was really amazing. I hope to see something like this in the U.S. because it is just so unusual. It's like waiting in line for one ride, and you get like 4 water slides and a river rapids ride, all tucked into one. So that was a really neat experience. And then we went to a wing of the park that opened just a few weeks before our visit, the Steam Factory area of the park. Is that what it was called? Factory?
Well, no, it was Dream Factory was the coaster.
Steam Racer was the coaster.
Well, Dream Factory
and then Factory,
is the coaster.
And I thought it was just called Factory Coaster.
No, that's the product name. Dream Coaster's never.
Okay. What was the area of the
Dream
park?
Factory.
What was the area of the park called?
I don't remember.
It's steampunk.
Steampunk. It's the best area of the park.
It's super cool.
And it's very industrial. It was actually really, really great. So we got there. We didn't see Steam Racer open, or what we call it, Steam Roller. And then we walked to the entrance, and they just opened it. So we're like, all right, let's run. So we ran through the queue, and we got on the train. We're the first public train out. And then we realized, after we got off, we tried riding a second time, that there was insane wind coming in. And so they had to close the ride. So we were what we thought the only dispatch of the day. till about 6 hours later when they actually opened it again for a couple hours. But that was really great. It was actually my first Blue Fire clone. Alex had been on actual Blue Fire, and I loved the ride. The layout was great. The launch was pretty solid. The theme was unique, which I liked. You're getting shot out of a cannon, is that what it is? Mm-hmm. And then the elements are great. So the color scheme is awesome. It is a orange train, which I like. And then the loop is great. The inversions are pretty good, and then the final inversion is about murder shoot.
The barrel roll is amazing because it has airtime in the. It's not like hang time.
They're called actually, Blue Fireball, right?
Yeah, it actually like fires you out of your seat.
Yeah,
it's really
Blue fires
you. Yeah. So even though it doesn't have like all the scenery that the one at Europa Park has, it's a fabulous ride in a better product. Believe it or not, we liked the production model coaster at the park better than the custom terrain B&M wing coaster. But that's just a testament to what Mac has in that product.
And unlike the Falcon, the theming was cohesive. The queue was beautiful. The exit was awesome.
There's everything about water feature that runs all the way down the length of the launch track, and it synchronizes with the ride. It's beautiful. That whole area of the park was really strong. We have friends who went when Falcon was open. They missed the steam roller coaster by a month or two. And then the Zamperla Factory Coaster, which is, from our understanding, it's Zamperla's answer to the Escape from Gringotts style roller coaster. That we were about a month early for that coaster.
Yeah, ours had stated open, but it was not because they were still painting and there was still Zamperla guys walking inside the building. So they were still finishing.
Very Italian-looking individuals
with some
walking around the park. We're just like, oh, so they're still here. They're still working on it. It did finally open. I hope we can find like a POV of it or something.
We'll probably go back to ride.
I hope it's a successful product line for them. I hope they build one in the U.S. because I want to ride it. But yeah, so before we move on from Sunak Wuchi, Final Sea Battle. Oh my gosh, so incredible!
I would say it's better than Disney Universal Dark Ride.
Disney Universal level dark ride experience using Spider-Man style ride system, 3D glasses, lots of different scenes, both physical and animated.
And long. It was long.
Intense.
It was about twice the length of Transformers.
Totally amazing.
Yeah, that was probably the biggest fan of that
park. Had the same presence as Pirates in Shanghai Disney, but with obviously a very different kind of ride. It was a lot of fun. And the other big surprise, I think, for us for that park was the parade.
With all these students from Russia.
The parade was super cool. It's pretty funny. Like, I guess Shanghai Disney's parade is kind of a non-starter. Like, it's got some nice floats, but it's really short.
Yeah.
It's actually themed to a train, which is cute because Shanghai Disney does not have a train. It's the only Disney resort that lacks an actual Disneyland railroad. So their Disneyland
has one?
Yeah.
Funny.
It was closed when we went because they're working on
they're working on the Wasp and stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, Shanghai Disney has the train station, like all of the other parks, but there's no actual train. It's the parade. So that's their Disneyland Railroad is the parade. Really cute theme, but it's not, as far as Disney parades go, it's short.
I just don't think this parade is that great to begin with.
Much.
It's all about the IPs.
Well, Paint the Night is amazing. Come on, you loved Paint the Night.
Paint the Night. That's one of the
we saw Paint the Night at Hong Kong, and which one did we see? We saw the daytime parade at Hong Kong and had all the show stops.
Okay, I love the one at Hong Kong because it is show stops.
Show stops.
You could actually stop because no one's at Hong Kong Disney, so you could actually stop your parade and dance around with all the people in the midway because there's only 5 of them. Yeah. So it's really fantastic.
Yeah.
A lot of parks that don't do that, so that's why I don't like the other ones.
And we love Main Street Electrical Parade and
that
kind
of
like stuff. As far as daytime parades go, though, the Wuchi Sunak parade was better than any daytime Disney parade that I've seen.
And it was long, and it was detailed, and all these different themed areas in the park, including the children areas and stuff, were all represented.
Yeah.
And the park's polished, even though, again, up close, some of the finishing wasn't as great, and we ended up walking into an abandoned cafe, 16 flights upstairs, so we really should look at, which is in our update. Go read it. But overall, the park was really, really impressive, and we really enjoyed it. There was a mall next to it. There was a Sunak Mall.
We went to formerly a Wanda Mall.
It has a theme park inside of it as well, like a marine park.
Aquarium, and a snow park.
And a water park.
It was neat.
So that was really great. And again, all these parks are actually really close, guys. So don't forget, you can go to Changzhou, and it's only an hour taxi ride to Sunak Land Wuchi. Dinosaur Land is right there. And then Joyland's only less than an hour away, maybe 45 minutes. So this whole region of the greater Shanghai and Suzhou metro has all these great parks pretty easily.
Really close to each other.
Very, very convenient to get to. Most parks have taxi stands. There's a taxi stand for Dinosaur, there's a taxi stand for Wuxi Sunak. There's a taxi stand, obviously, for Happy Valley Shanghai and Shanghai Disney. So even with taxis, if you just want to go from point A to B quick for an actually really decent price for Western standards, these parks are really, really approachable. So don't be afraid to actually scope out a way to get there. Shoot us a message, we'll help you out. But just in case you do plan a China trip, it is actually much more approachable than you may think, I would say. And speaking of approachable, the HB World Park is actually right next to the freeway. We saw it on the way over to Chengdu. We saw it. We're like driving by.
We weren't even sure if this park was real, and then we saw it from the highway, and we're like, "Oh, there it is!"
And we're like, "This is massive." There's all these flats and all these apartment buildings, and this giant statue of HB World sticks out right over it,
like a 300-foot Buddhist demigod creature overlooking the incredible Forbidden City-ish style.
It's called something else, some park, but yeah.
HB World is really special because it's themed areas first and everything else second. They've got a wing coaster, they've got some other great rides, but theming and being immaculate on a production level is their whole gig.
So to give you a little background, is that Hayui Brothers is a famous Chinese production company. It is the biggest Chinese movie and media production company. They're based in Beijing? Chengdu, I think. With studios in Beijing. I'm not sure. Anyways, they figured that Shanghai Disney was coming to Shanghai. They're like, hey, we're going to build in the same metro. We're going to build our movie park there. And what is so unique about Hayui Brothers is that the themes are typically Chinese because it's all, Chinese movies about Chinese wars, civil wars, that kind of stuff. And so when you go there, it's almost like a Chinese culture credit because everything you experience there is what relates to the Chinese culture and history, I guess. But what the park focused on most was immersing you in the areas. Even though this park had budget and a lot of money, the dark rides were pretty low quality. The actual attractions inside were fun, but they were nowhere near as good as some other rides we've ridden.
Yeah,
the actual themed areas was so impressive.
They had a full-scale, Indiana Jones-sized dark ride, but it was all VR. So you're physically going through this giant warehouse in a Jeep, but it was all VR, and it was, PlayStation 2 graphics you've come to expect from Six Flags. So that was kind of a head-scratcher. They had a ride that was kind of like Toy Story Mania, where you shot a crossbow, but it was kind of clunky. It was not...
It's like the first Wii game.
Yeah. It was like a 2007 era Wii game. Inside the incredible full-scale Imperial Temple with the 300-foot statue behind it was an indoor boat ride, shoot-the-shoot type thing, which was well-meaning, but...
Again, it fell short.
Execution just wasn't quite there.
There was a rip-off spinner, which was actually really fun. It was
the spinning coaster was really
Flaming
Beetles. And it had a really nice curb appeal. It was in its own little courtyard to the right of the Imperial Palace.
With a beautiful queue and a garden.
Stunning. And the ride was really fun.
And it's actually a pretty tall ride and a pretty big ride, but it's dwarfed by the giant areas of this park. And this park, again, is... They build not just studios, but they made everything life-size. Yeah. It was incredible
Instead of using this is the biggest difference between this park and any other park in the world. Yeah. Is that instead of using forced perspective, everything is actual size.
So you cross over this giant bridge to go into that giant temple castle thing, and you're just stand there. You're like, is this really this big? You walk in, and it's just
you feel
people everywhere, but it's so small. This is such a
you feel
massive,
like you're actually
at
a cultural monument and not a theme park because everything was to scale.
And so the budget just went there. The budget went to building everything to scale, and it's so impressive just walking around there. And the rides themselves, besides the wing coaster, really weren't that great. But the areas it's just stunning. Just walking around there, you get a really great appreciation for what that movie company does. And I don't think their knowledge of theme parks is great enough for them to run it, to make spectacular attractions like rides. But they sure as hell knew how to make spectacular sets. It was beautiful.
The park's been open a year now, so I think they're getting their sea legs.
There are people there.
They, as far as coasters go, they made a really good. They have a kiddie coaster that is a clone. It's a Golden Horse clone of the Woody Woodpecker Nut House a variant of a Vekoma roller skater. So it has an additional brake run with a transfer for 2-train operations, even though this is China, and they would never, ever run 2 trains on anything.
Well, that's actually got popular, because all the trains were actually operational.
Yeah, I guess that's true. They were working on the second train for Wings of Glory, which was the turn-of-the-century Shanghai-themed ride, which...
Themed to a flying machine.
Area. Yeah, it was themed to, very, Chinese, Wright brothers, kind of, the golden era of manned flight. Really great ride. It was so much less impressive looking than Falcon at Wuchi Sunak, which we rode the day before, and yet I think this one might be the better product.
I think so too. The thing is that the Wuchi wing only had 3 inversions, which I'm not saying I'm an inversion whore, but it only had 3 inversions. It's where the production model kind of wing coaster had longer trains, had 6 inversions, but every inversion was different. It had a little vertical loop. It had everything it did was just great. It was very compact. It was very intense. It felt like the new Batman clone, really. And I really hope to see this model pop up somewhere in the U.S. because it can fit in any regional park. But the ride layout is fantastic.
It reminded me of X-Flight a little bit. It was compact. It was very much like an entry-level kind of thing where you're what can we show people that this ride system can do in, the shortest amount of time? That's the only thing that the ride was really missing was, a keyhole moment. But it does have this cool, it does the gatekeeper drop, with the dive, or X-Flight. It goes right into a vertical loop, and the vertical loop has a support beam that threads it. Yeah. So the clearances on that are kind of fun. It's got 3 different kinds of rolls. A 0G roll, a barrel roll, and a corkscrew.
The corkscrew was great because the corkscrew was small.
Corkscrew was tight.
Unlike Wild Eagle, where the corkscrew feels like just a large element, and the corkscrew was just tight, so you get whipped around it pretty quick. It was sick.
And it has it has an Immelman that's close to an inversion. It reminded me a lot of the half Immelman on Black Mamba. Actually, it doesn't completely invert you.
Well, neither does the incline loops on the stand-ups. It was about this much.
Yeah.
It was over 135. Yeah. So.
Not an Immelman in the traditional sense.
Yeah, it wasn't a vertical Immelman, but it was a slanted Immelman. That's
but
for
was again a great model. The ride had really good pacing. It was a lot better than I thought it would be based on how it looked. It has a helix at the end, a full helix.
And instead of doing the slow roll, it kind of goes into a 0G roll, but then finishes it as a roll that becomes a helix. So it does all these little things to connect these pieces. And I thought it was actually a really genius layout. And we rode it back and front on both sides. And I would say we liked it so much better than we liked the one the day before.
This is actually a clone of a wing coaster that was built at a theme park resort called Hot Go. Hot Go Dream World has been under construction for 3 or 4 years now, and they have 2 complete B&M coasters, a B&M Hyper that kind of looks like Shambhala, and
Goliath colors.
This wing coaster. The track work and stuff has been complete since 2017. No one seems to know, at least on our end, what the delay is. But for whatever reason, this amusement park has not opened yet with their complete B&Ms. Nevertheless, HB World ordered a clone of this Hot Go wing coaster layout. So even though it's the first clone, it's a clone of a wing coaster that hasn't opened yet. So it's the first of its kind that's open, even though there's a clone of it elsewhere in China. So on Roller Coaster Database, it's listed as a Hot Go as the model type, even though the Hot Go one is not
Boomerang,
yet,
where the one in Mexico was built, was manufactured first, but opened after the Bellarmine one, which was built second but opened first. Yeah,
same kind of thing. So Hot Go Wing Coaster number 1 has been complete for 2 years. Future is uncertain, but Hot Go Wing number 2 is open for business at HB World.
And that's the thing with HB World is that it's located much closer to Shanghai than the other parks are. So if you want to do the part of a day trip, we combine it with doing a whole day in downtown Shanghai.
HB World is exactly halfway between downtown Shanghai and downtown Changzhou.
Yeah.
And then Wuchi is halfway between Suzhou and Changzhou. So
you can really just do a line of parks and work your way up all the way to Nanjing if you want, because there's parks everywhere.
It gives me LA County vibes, but on a much, much, much bigger population level. But spatially,
it's kind of how you take the 5, and on the 5 you hit Magic Mountain, and then you hit Universal Studios Hollywood, and then you hit Disneyland. Then you hit Knott's Berry Farm, then you hit Disneyland, and then you hit Legoland, and you hit SeaWorld. Like, everything's on the 5.
So yeah, if you think of if you started in Santa Barbara and worked your way down to the Mexican border, that's kind of the size scope of this entire Eastern China region that we visited with all these incredible theme parks, including your Disney park, your Amazing Studios park, and a variety of roller coaster parks. So after we finished it up at HB World, we had our night in downtown Shanghai, which was super fun. They have, among other things, the Oriental Pearl Tower, which has a 1,000-foot glass floor observation deck, lots of other
roller coaster
activities,
inside, which
and
you were last time.
a Vekoma roller skater.
Of course, the Bund, you need to go check out the Bund. There's Nanjing East Road, which has a bunch of different attractions on it.
It's like their Times Square.
So we love downtown Shanghai. Don't get me wrong when I said earlier that we like Jiangsu so much because it was not as Western. Shanghai is so spectacular. It's so much fun to hang out in Shanghai. So we did that for the evening. And then the next morning, we went to Haicheng Ocean Park, brand new for 2018. They are an amusement park that is actually designed by a U.S. company, Legacy GCC, which is going to be at the APA this year too. It's an up-and-coming design company from the U.S., kind of like Jura in Europe. They just kind of design the sets and the layout of the park. So they designed that park. However, the materials, we'll get that in a second. What we did is we took the metro over. It's kind of in the outskirts. The park is not that close to anything, really. It's like right below the landing strips for Pudong Airport.
Really right on the peninsula where the greater, like where Pudong meets the ocean.
Yeah, it's like way out
on
where
the eastern and southern
the
sides.
flights enter,
So this park really is surrounded by ocean. It's about as close to the ocean as civilized China gets without being on the delta, at least in this region. So we take the metro over. We walked through a city that was partially complete and virtually uninhabited. Yep.
So we walked over these streets that no one was on there. It was
we walked
concrete.
into the hotel because that was on the side of the
and we
property
thought the
that
hotel
was facing.
was going to be like our way into the park.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we'll just go through the hotel because we couldn't find the entrance.
They kicked us out and made us go around.
We're like, oh,
we
where's your passport? We're like, what the hell's the passport to do with this? We didn't realize that the passport was actually required to buy tickets.
Yeah.
So we walked around and we took an over bridge and we got to the front of the park and they're like, where's your passport? We're like, we didn't take a passport.
Yeah.
This was our first passport incident.
Yeah.
Passport incident episode 1. So we're like, we don't have that. But eventually, after talking for a little bit, we gave them our Florida IDs and they took it. And they're like, hey, here's some tickets. I was like, great. Thanks for not making a big deal out of this.
So this park, really, the star, of course, is their only operating roller coaster, Steel Dolphin. The entire park, maybe not the entire park, a vast majority of the park feels designed around this wonderful, family-friendly Intamin Blitz coaster. It's everything. I'm a big fan of Cheetah Hunt at Busch Gardens, Tampa, but I would also comfortably say that this is the coaster that Cheetah Hunt wishes it was. We like it a lot. We don't like it quite as much as Taron, but we actually, I think, would choose it over Maverick. And
that's a close call, but Maverick doesn't necessarily have the integration with the park. I mean, this thing goes over the rivers, to tunnels, over the entrance.
Yeah.
It goes everywhere. It has water effects.
Yeah, the whole entrance of the park, underground tunnels, over-the-shoulder lap bars, an updated version of what you might find on Sky Rush.
Yep.
Like Sky Rush's restraints, except they don't kill your legs. Fabulous ride, so much fun. We rode it 5 times. In fact, we didn't even have to leave the station because the ride operators for this ride were
which was
so
completely
awesome.
unique. They'd never seen it anywhere in Asia.
So it's the only park in China you'll ever visit where not only will they let you stay in the station for re-rides, but they will pluck you out of your seat in row 5 and give you the front row if there's no one there.
They're like, oh, guys, go right here. We're like, what do you mean? Like, do you have to go around? We're like, no, row 1. And I was like, what do you mean row 1? And he's like, sit in row 1. And we're like, oh, okay, we'll sit in row 1. Thanks. We just didn't expect that. And then the park has... I feel like the park was trying to be the Chamlong Ocean Kingdom of the East. They were trying to be the competitor with Disney. They did charge the same price as Disney. Now, the only thing up to standards was their orca exhibit, which, yes, orcas are wild caught from Russia. Yes, they were purchased from Russia. Yes, they are being traded by humans in captivity. If you have a problem with that, I understand. But the facilities they were in they're actually the best facilities in the park. Yeah. So they are comparable to SeaWorld Orlando's orca tanks. So, and only had 4 wheels there, so it's not like they were dying for space.
The orca show was very good.
Orca show was completely in English.
Took
it
a
was
lot
very
of cues
educational.
From SeaWorld. but it was good.
So you can really see that the park has a lot of Western influences here and there. And that was definitely one of them. It was very much educational, good size, orchestrated, well taken care of. So that was actually a surprise. Now, the rest of the park doesn't necessarily stay the same.
Even though the park's been open for about a year now, it opened in October, I think, of last year.
November 2018.
Yeah. So it's just barely been open a year. It's still stumbling its way through the fledgling park process. In their Christmas area of the park, there's a big train ride. The park does not have a lot of actual rides. It has a kiddie area that's pretty well fleshed out, with the exception of the kiddie coaster, but we'll get over to that in a minute. There's a train ride in this kind of winter wonderland themed area of the park, which is really cute and has like German and Russian themed areas and polar animal exhibits. But the train ride is missing in action. It's there. It's on the park map, but the entrance is blocked off. There was a cable car ride that was up and down throughout the day. We didn't get to ride it.
Which is dumb because it's on the ocean, under the traffic pattern of the airport, so like the wind is pretty heavy there.
Yeah,
like
the wind is terrible.
It's out in the open. So.
It's just the sort of thing where like they built this cable car ride that's wind sensitive, and they screwed up.
You haven't seen like
they really wanted to be Ocean Park Hong Kong in this moment with the cable cars, and they screwed it up. The kiddie area had a majority of the rides, including a kiddie coaster where the second to last vehicle had derailed and crashed into the infield of the ride. So the train is like it's just like in the final. It's a very simple coaster layout, like a Zamperla Family Gravity looking layout. I think, is it a knockoff?
I think it's a knockoff.
I would assume it's a knockoff, but basically the second to last car came right off the axle and is still laying in the grass with the train parked just outside of the station, with the vehicle still stuck in the grass. Looking like a scene from a horror movie or something. We certainly hope. We could only assume that the train was empty when this happened because it looked pretty benign.
The main thing about this park is that it looks very nice, but even though this park is brand new, there was like
classic China
black mold everywhere, like
mold,
rust. Like it just felt like everything was brand new. It was such shit
some
quality.
Of the in the splash zone for the Orca show, the seats were covered in green like gunk.
Yeah, it was bad, and like everything was rusted. And then we walked into the hotel right earlier, and like the ceilings were black mold. It was just covered in black mold. It smelled. We
have pictures on the website. That's the first thing I took a picture of at this park was the freaking black mold in the ceiling up there.
And even in the little candy shop, so the candy shop has homemade candy from the park that is themed to their characters, which is very Western.
8 adorable sea creature themed characters, and they have their own candy kitchen, and they make their own candy themed to these characters.
So in a way, it's very sophisticated and Western, but then you look up at the ceiling and it's freaking falling apart.
Yeah.
And it's very China for you. So if you go to China, you're going to see it everywhere. The nicest, newest high-rises you're going to enter, the walls are going to be falling apart. It's just kind of how China is. Like it's very much cheap compared to what we...
because the hotel is themed to an ocean liner. Yeah. So like you see it in the background of like a lot of our pictures on the website.
But it looks like it's just a ship, yeah.
As usual, from far away, it just looks so great. And then the closer you get, the harder it is. And
the funniest thing, I think, was the whale shark volcano exhibit. So you enter a volcano and there's like projection mapping. It's a sick. And you're like, all right. So you look at all these exhibits and these aquariums are small. I'm like, this is a 2018 theme park. Yeah. Why is this shit so small? There's like this small little aquarium with 5 major adult sharks, and they're just like swimming around in tight
little circles doing donuts because they have nowhere to go.
It was bad. And so if you look off to the right, you see a restaurant. Like the theming inside is fantastic, but then you look off and you see a restaurant, and it's just a small tank. Like everything's small, and then you enter the ship that is the sunken ship, and you look out of a window in the sunken ship.
The portholes.
The porthole. You look into the main tank, and it's just okay. The main tank is an okay size, and you see another small aquarium, but with 3 more sharks and a single stingray. Like everything seemed like it was just not it, right? Everything was just slightly off. And then you get to the finale tank, right? The big whale shark volcano exhibit. And guess what, guys?
No whale sharks.
There's no whale sharks.
They had mermaids.
They had mermaids swimming around, like humans, for entertainment. But there was no whale shark. So here they have an exhibit that is literally called the whale shark volcano. That literally has signs about the whale shark in their whale shark aquarium. But there are no whale sharks in this park. Just give you a heads up on that one. So that was really weird. I was like, okay. So that was just not up to our standards. Neither was the whole dolphin exhibit.
But they did have some redeeming attractions. They had another water slide, rapid ride,
the largest in the world
thing,
yeah.
Which we didn't ride it at this park because we rode the one at Wuchi and that was really awesome. For this one, we just didn't. We were gonna, we were flying later that day. We weren't sure if we were gonna have time to take a shower later. We really didn't want to get super wet and then be all around the city and deal with that. So I took some pictures of it. They have a great dark ride here.
Yeah, dark ride's cool. It's
they had a 4D dark ride with a tunnel that goes through one of the larger aquariums.
High quality physical scenes, high quality projection scenes. It was actually really
cute.
great.
It was about a little mermaid and an evil something comes and steals the pearl from the city or whatever. It was pretty basic, but it was cute. It was pretty well done.
Actually really fun.
And it was our first This was our first dark ride through an aquarium of the trip. Our second was at Chimong Ocean Kingdom, which was incredible.
And I am so incredibly glad we went to Haichang Ocean Park first, because even though we actually enjoyed our time there, we left a little early because we had seen it.
Yeah,
it was not the greatest and largest park, but the overall appearance, they have set themselves on a stage for global success, surely. But I'm glad we went there before Chimong Ocean Kingdom, because when we went to Ocean Kingdom, it became clear that it's such a major role player. Yeah. It is the future of the theme park industry. Yeah. Chimong Ocean Kingdom just murdered the newer park.
Chimong Ocean Kingdom killed it dead. That park is so
and
over
so
the top
right now, I want to go back to Haichang Ocean Park for another 10 years, unless they build something really great. I need to ride there next time we're there.
I want to go to Chimong Ocean Kingdom
But
tomorrow.
I want to go to Chimong Ocean Kingdom every year for
every day.
For
I would live there.
We actually looked at several options of doing so, and they're fantastic hotels. Let's just dolphins in a hotel, but more on that in episode 2.
Yeah.
So overall,
East China was solid.
A lot of great parks. Every park has a highlight ride, which is fantastic because we have also been to the southern region in our next episode, where there were parks where it just wasn't happening.
The southern region was a lot more inconsistent. Some high highs and some low lows.
Yeah, oh, totally. It was the lowest lows and the highest highs were in that region.
Yeah.
And so for most of the Shanghai, Chengdu, Suzhou area, mid-east China, the ride rosters, every park has a major coast that's definitely worth traveling for, I would say.
Yeah.
Including the Blitz coast, the Steel Dolphin was really fun.
Steel Dolphin was
fantastic.
That was a huge surprise.
It's definitely more approachable. Fly to go to Shanghai from anywhere in the U.S. Any airline flies there. Shanghai people speak more English in the region. Yeah. It is definitely easier to get around.
The metro, everything's in English.
There's bullet trains everywhere.
It's so cheap.
So I would definitely say, if you're looking to go through your first China trip, totally go to Shanghai.
Just go to the Shanghai area
and do some of those parks.
You can kill a week there so easy.
Yeah, even 2 weeks.
No stress. No
especially
if
if you're doing more than just theme parks.
Yep.
So Shanghai is a really great region to start your China theme parking around. A little more consistency.
That's what we did.
Yeah.
Your first. Well,
first and my first. Both. Even though different times we're there. And when you're ready to do a little more bargaining, not speaking English, and seeking
got your sea legs a little bit, ready to swing your hips, you're going to go to
episode 2, and you're going to go down to South China, where it's jungly, way more polluted.
Totally different world.
And we'll take you to a different world in episode 2.
I
really hope you enjoyed this episode. Everything that we talked about is actually live. So we recorded this right after we just published Haichang Ocean Park on the website, thecoasterkings.com.
Coaster Kings, yep.
So that's all on there. So you got to make sure you check that out. We have all the supports for you. Details on how to get there. Details about the park. Way more than we were able to fit in this 2-hour episode.
Please, if you have any questions on anything related to the Chinese parks, planning a trip, literally anything, don't hesitate to reach out to us on any of our social media platforms.
Yeah, shoot an email.
Instagram, Facebook, anything. We are here for you.
Leave comments on the website. We want to help you guys go to China. We realize all these parks are so brand new that no one has covered these parks like we have. And we went everywhere. We didn't have any tour guides. We completely 100% self-planned this tour. And we would love to take people on tours in the future. But just so you guys know, if you have any questions, please use us as a resource. We would love to tell you more about these parks and the understanding we have of the operation in the region and how to get around. Because, again, we didn't do it with a tour group. We did everything completely 100% on our own. Yeah. So feel free to reach out. We would love to talk to everyone about it. We really are really enthusiastic. We love the Chinese market. It is such a different market, people. I don't think most people understand. It is such a different world. The way that the audience perceives it, the way that the parks put themselves together. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a really great trip. It was I think it was the best trip we've ever been on.
It's
So
my favorite thing I've ever done.
yeah, so
For sure.
let us know, guys, if you have any questions. I want to thank you for listening.
Mm-hmm.
I know we're hitting one of our longest episodes already. So thank you so much for sticking with us through East China.
We hope this Cathay Catharsis was cathartic for you.
That one.
And we will be back, hopefully, within a month or so.
Maybe
if
even
not
sooner. We're trying to get these China episodes out for you guys, so we stay current.
We'll be back for part 2.
Yeah, part 2 we'll have parks like Changmeng Ocean Kingdom. We'll have some specials in there. We'll have Changmeng Paradise,
the Canton Tower,
which is going to be a big surprise. I'm
super
tell you about it
special.
And then some disappointment parks, some complete Chinese park like
Totally
Chonglord
Chinese. Yeah,
Manor.
Chonglord Holiday Manor.
I mean, South China. I love South China too. Guangzhou it's such a major city that people don't really seem to visit very often.
Guangzhou is actually the 9th largest metro in the world, and no one talks about it. It's the biggest city you've never heard of.
It's the 3rd biggest city in all of China. It is a really wonderful place. We had a really fantastic time. So we will talk to you guys about that on episode 2, where we're going to visit our very, very, very favorite theme park in the world. And for now, thank you for listening.
All right.